all the different organizations who are here today to speak as well.
So there's peace in the valley on this. Is there any opposition to it? Is there a motion?
Move to report. Second.
Motion properly seconded.
Substitute.
Motion properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you very much. And I will be striking Senate Bill 1355.
Okay, the request of the patron, is there a motion to strike Senate Bill 1355? Motion properly seconded to strike the bill. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Searle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple housekeeping matters. First of all, on Senate Bills 1383 and 99, I'm not sure whether you want to roll them into the remaining bill or strike them. I really don't care which way we go, but I want to proceed on 1398.
And I think it's cleaner if we strike the ones you're not going to proceed on, and you can proceed on the ones you're going to proceed on.
That's fine.
So there's a motion to strike 1383 and 1399. Is there a motion? Properly seconded. All in favor of strike those two bills, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You're going forward with
98, and there's
1398.
a substitute.
Move to substitute.
Is there a second? Second. Motion properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Substitute is before. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, just to give some context, 1399, the one you all just struck, was the bill you all heard last year, and I think it failed on a 6 to 1 vote on this committee. 1383 was a recycling bill. This one is kind of a mix of all three, sort of, and so I'll explain it to you right now.
Tell us what it does.
So, just to give you a little bit of context, this coal ash problem is a growing, booming, ongoing problem. There was a big Superfund site spill in Tennessee, and then we had the spill in North Carolina that worked its way into Virginia, back to North Carolina. EPA issued some new rules and told all those utilities you got to quit storing coal ash in ponds, and you have to start moving it into dry landfills. We're not going to allow wet storage anymore. One of these facilities that at least Dominion Resources has is located in my district. It's called Possum Point. Possum Point, they've got 120 acres of sort of coal ash sludge sitting really close, within maybe 1,000 yards or so of the Quantico Creek and a bunch of homes. Just for some context, over the last year, we've got a lot more information on this than we had last year, and they got some well tests that came back that showed groundwater wells were pretty seriously polluted. So polluted that Dominion has now offered to hook up about 12 homes to county water. Senator Marsden's been working with me on that. I appreciate his help. I have a bunch of constituents now living down the end of Possum Point Road. They're brushing their teeth with bottled water. They're only drinking bottled water. They're worried about their property values being impaired. And there are 7 of these facilities around the state where this sludge has been leaching stuff out. And we got to figure out what to do with it. DEQ has been taking steps to deal with it with Dominion, with APCO, but this bill starts to get there. So, a couple more really quick points of context. Coal ash is used in making concrete. A lot of people don't realize that, but they actually use it to make concrete. And I went to the Port of Virginia and learned that we actually import it into Virginia from China and Poland instead of using the stuff we have in the ground here. The port originally told me 600 container loads, now they told me 25. That we only bring in 25 containers. Either way, we're bringing in coal ash from Poland and China instead of using what we have here. This bill is designed to address that. So, the bill you have in front of you, number one, it only affects coal ash ponds that are in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And so that means it only applies to Dominion coal ash ponds. It does not apply to APCO. APCO has 2 sites in the Clinch River, doesn't apply to them. Lines 16 through 20.
Just out of curiosity, for those who may not be familiar with that, what is considered the Chesapeake Bay watershed?
Potomac River, James River, Rappahannock River, Anna River, any river that feeds into the Chesapeake.
York River.
Uh,
York River.
York River, I guess that's the end, River End, and I guess there's a few down in Norfolk, like the Elizabeth River and some others, that are smaller, but yeah. So, yeah. So lines 16 through 20 require basically Dominion to identify and describe their groundwater and surface water pollution, and to look into that, evaluate possible corrective measures to resolve that existing pollution. And this pollution is there, it's been documented, we know what's going on, but we don't quite know the full extent of it. And they need to describe and demonstrate how corrective measures will actually fix our groundwater. The second piece requires the utility to provide an evaluation about recycling. Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina are all recycling their coal ash. They dig it up out of the ponds, they put it in some furnaces, dry it out, then they make it usable so it can be then sold and used to make concrete products. Number two requires an analysis of that for all the different sites in Virginia to see how feasible that is. And whether it would have one site or like multiple sites. There could be like 5 of these recycling locations, in Virginia only 1. Number 3, it's lines 27 through 30, requires the utility to evaluate whether clean closure is feasible. What clean closure is digging all this stuff up and putting it in a modern landfill. And in North Carolina, they're also doing that. They're doing a combination of all of the above, which is kind of what this bill asks us to sort of look at and evaluate before deciding what to do. And so it asks Dominion to look at that. Number 4, which is lines 31 through 33, asks for the utility to demonstrate whatever the proposal is safe long-term. You got to remember, every one of these ponds sits within like 1,000 feet of 1,000 yards of a river. In fact, the Chesterfield site is actually a 100-acre coal ash pond sitting in the middle of the original channel of the James River. Before they cut through it about 50 years ago. But it's actually sitting where the river used to run 100 years ago. So we have to demonstrate long-term safety. So when the sea level rises, whatever hurricanes come in, we know this stuff isn't going to break out. Number 5 is they have to demonstrate that the closure method isn't going to leave residuals within these areas that the federal code prohibits. Number 7 requires them to transmit these assessments to DEQ, DCR, and it also requires the utility to identify one site where coal ash could be recycled. And there's some people from the recycling community here that are going to talk for maybe 3 minutes and explain what they can do to recycle this stuff, but it requires them to identify a site that could have recycling done. And lastly, it says the DEQ can't approve any permits until all this information is provided so that they have it, public has it, everybody has it, so we know what we're doing is the safest, is the best, it's going to clean the environment, it's not going to blow up in 100 years, etc. And I would say that having this information is important because when we close these sites down, we're doing something that's going to last for upwards of 100 years or more. And we got to make sure when we do it right. Dominion is spending a fortune fixing these things. They just, on their earnings call 2 days ago, said they just declared I think it's a $297 million charge against earnings for the coal ash expenses, and it's growing. The stock price declined because of that. They need to know how much they're going to spend. Everybody needs to know how much they're going to spend. Ratepayers need to know how much it's going to cost them. But it's a massive problem around the state that we need to get our arms around and figure out our solutions to. This will provide the information that allows us to do it in the safest, best way possible for everybody. That's basically what this does.
Senator, in all fairness, they are currently operating all these sites under current compliance of law, both under the EPA and the state.
Under what?
They are currently complying with the law under both the EPA and the state. I think it's important to point out.
They're attempting to. I can tell you that EPA and DEQ has one possible violation under consideration regarding a $20 million gallon water discharge that happened about a year ago. But otherwise, I believe there's no other pending violations being considered. They're trying to comply the best they can. But this is all a new situation. Virginia's never had to do this before. There's another reason why we need this information. This is all brand new to everybody in the United States.
Are there questions of the patron on this? No. Are there those that would like to speak in support of it? And again, I just remind you, we set a time limit on each side, so just be respectful of those who would like to speak after.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Nate Conferado. I'm an attorney at the Southern Environmental Law Center. We need to make sure that we fully understand the problems at each site in Virginia before we issue any permits, just as Senator Servo just mentioned. Virginia is being left behind in the coal ash cleanup regionally. Our neighbors in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia have committed to and have already started to excavate 75 million tons of coal ash. And that's being put into a modern lined landfill, or it's being recycled for cemented concrete. In contrast here, we're not aware of any ash being recycled, and there's only a tiny fraction that's being excavated to a properly lined landfill. So we need to do more. This assessment bill is a way to move forward. This bill requires the utilities to perform a thorough assessment of all their coal ash in Virginia, site by site, unit by unit, to make sure any closure permit is a solution to this problem. It gets information into the hands of the decision makers so that we can pick the right solution for the first time. The concern here is we're rushing through permits to close these sites before we fully understand the problems, and that's a problem environmentally, but it's also a problem for the pocketbook. If we get it wrong the first time, then we're going to have to do it a second time. So if we only cap in place and realize there's groundwater problems, we're going to have to spend money again. So we support SB 1398 because it gets information where we need it, and we can solve the problems right the first time. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come on up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Jamie Bronco. I'm Glover James Riverkeeper at the James River Association. And I urge you to support this bill. I think it is well worth reporting forward, and there are many reasons to do that, which I think some of the speakers are going to comment on. The point I want to make is that coal ash is not something we want in our waterways. There's lots of reports out there already that show the toxins that are contained in this stuff, arsenic, lead, chromium, stuff that's associated as very toxic for people, for the environment, for wildlife. There's plenty of evidence, abundant evidence, as a matter of fact, that it's already leaking from these coal ash ponds throughout the state. There's 3 major facilities in the James River watershed: Remo Power Station, Chesterfield Power Station, and then at the Chesapeake Energy Center on the Elizabeth River. At Chesterfield Power Station, there's about 13 million tons of this stuff sitting in old ponds, including in the old channel of the James River. And not only has it already been documented in the groundwater as evidenced by utility groundwater monitoring report through DEQ, but in July and December of 2016, we went out with some independent experts. We took water samples, and we found several places where it is leaking in the surface water at Chesterfield Power Station. There's one place, in fact, that you need not go and do testing. You can look at Google Maps and see a giant orange spot where the soil is stained orange from decades of this stuff leaking. So these are leaking. These are a serious concern, and we need to find a solution to move forward and start addressing this. And I think this bill gets us a lot closer to where we need to be. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please come on up.
Hi, Josie Mays again with New Virginia Majority. We believe this bill will greatly benefit low-income Virginians and communities of color, and we support it.
Hello, my name is Dan Morrow. I'm a homeowner of Austin Point Road for 21 years. I've raised my 3 children there, my 2 young daughters. Last year we understood, watching the news about this pollution. I reached out to find out a little more information about this, and I found out that we needed some serious water testing done on our wells. We reached out. We've had 4 separate tests done showing high levels of all toxins, all chemicals known, carcinogenics. It's a tough challenge, the biggest one of my life. Children that have been poisoned by this, a wife who cries every day. We drank bottled water for the last year. We showered in the water to realize that it burned the hair off my kids' heads, my wife's heads. Dominion Power has denied this. I've approached them. Actually, they contacted me back in April to ask my feelings about this, and I explained to them then that I felt very uncomfortable with this, that I felt that they should reach out to the remaining neighbors that had well waters and provide drinking water. They told me that day would never come, that it would be a sign of guilt, and they were doing nothing wrong. Well, now, all of a sudden, they're asking us to run water. They reached out December 13th to say they were going to provide water to us. They still have not provided water to us. We have families that are still drinking this water. We have monitoring wells that have been reestablished that show these contaminations, and I'm hoping that you guys will allow time to go by before you honor a 1988 permit to allow them to keep all this poison on their property. Thank you.
Thank you. We have run out of time, but if you would like to quickly come up and say who you represent, you can do that very quickly.
Very quickly, my name is Jimmy Knowles. I work for a company called the Super Group. We market coal ash. That's our core
You
business.
support the bill.
Pardon me?
You support the bill. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, committee members, Trias Lockwood, Virginia Conservation Network, and we support the bill.
Thank you.
Steve Carter, Lovejoy with the Virginia Sierra Club. We support the bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Town, Virginia League of Conservation Voters, support the bill.
Thank you. Now, conversely, is there anyone who opposes the bill and wants to speak?
Mr. Chairman, Bill Murray speaking on behalf of Dominion. I'd like to start by thanking the patron for having a number of discussions with us on this legislation. We did work hard to try to reach a sort of mutual agreement, and I think a fundamental reason, I was thinking last night, why was this hard to sort of reach an agreement on the bill? And I think it's the fundamental premise that underlies the legislation. The fundamental premise of all three bills on this topic this year was there's something wrong with our current regulatory structure and our current regulators, and that we need to impose a different process outside of what's been a long-standing Virginia environmental process. And we must respectfully disagree with that. State created State Water Control Board in the 1930s, decades before there was a US EPA. We have recognized for the professionalism of our water quality management and our waste management, if there's been one sort of good outcome of the large amount of imported waste that we had over time, without getting into that debate, we have a very advanced set of waste regulations. We have very experienced waste regulators in Virginia. And the fundamental premise here of this legislation is that there's something wrong with all of that, and there needs to be a different process. For example, if you look at number 1 and number 4, called for in the legislation, those are part and parcel of what you do in water and waste permits as part of the existing process. We've got the highest regard for the hundreds of dedicated career professionals who work at our state environmental agencies, and we've been very blessed in Virginia to have a very apolitical approach for decades to water and water quality regulation and waste regulation. So that's the first concern. The second concern is essentially what this does is it freezes an ongoing permit process in place, and it prejudges the two of the potential outcomes are recycling or clean closure. In the case of recycling, we recycle about 700,000 tons of ash per year, primarily from our newly generated ash from the 5 remaining coal units that we have. So there is a more active market typically for newly created ash than ash that has been in the ground for decades in a pond. With regard to clean closure, that is certainly something that, if looking at the specifics of the site and in working with our regulators, there's nothing in current law that prevents us from proposing that right now. We've not seen the need to do that yet, but that is certainly an option that is there. And I'll tell you, in terms of the site that was mentioned, Possum Point, I would encourage anybody to drive Possum Point Road and then try to picture multiple 100,000 truck trips on a very narrow road leaving that particular site. The final issue, and this particularly relates to the delay of the permitting process as well as some of the potential outcomes, has to do with customer cost. As has been discussed in some other venues this session, we are under capped base rates. For 3 of our 4 sites, the only mechanism we would have in Virginia law through the end of 2019 to recover costs, and the 3 sites in question, ones that are no longer active coal plants. So that would be Bremo, Possum Point, and Chesapeake. 2 of them are now active gas plants, but they're not coal plants anymore. The only mechanism we would have to recover them would be in base rates. As the Senator alluded to, last year we took a $99 million charge against earnings and said essentially these are expenses we've had that we don't view as collectible under current Virginia law. Yesterday we announced a I'm doing this from memory, so let's round, about $195 million charge. So in the neighborhood of $300 million. None of those costs are collectible from customers during this rate freeze period. If you freeze this process in place for a couple of years from this assessment, what you're in essence doing is moving those costs out past the rate freeze period where they'd be collectible in future rate cases. So I did want to point that out to the committee. We have had good discussions with paper, and we're certainly willing to continue to discuss this issue. But if you pass this bill, you're making a fundamental judgment. Our current environmental regulatory structures don't work. There's something wrong with them, and we need to set up a sort of outside structure to take the place of that permitting process. For those reasons, we would respectfully oppose the bill.
Gentlemen, you have for a question.
Senator Peters?
You talked about you have cap-based rates.
Mm-hmm.
That was done at your own request, correct?
Excuse me?
That was done at your request.
Yes, absolutely. I'm
I
just saying,
have
we oppose the bill, so we're preferring the current state of the law.
Exactly. Would you be willing to uncap the rates and have the rates be reviewed again by the SEC so we can bring all these factors in front of the SEC? Would you prefer that, Bill?
Senator Peters, I think that's a fair.
I think that's not, I don't read this bill as involving any of that particular section of law. However, what I will say, that under current law, to the extent you move costs beyond 2019, you're back in a situation where they're collectible through base rates.
Thank you. Can I just make
Three real quick points I want to make. First of all,
if I may,
yeah.
is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition? Okay, you can wrap up.
Sure, I appreciate Dan Morrow coming today, my constituent here. You know, we've been talking to him a lot. Dominion has publicly committed to pay for water line hookups for those 12 homes. I think it's $40,000 per house after the house hooks it up, but they've already committed, they're on the hook for that. In terms of what Mr. Murray said, and I appreciate Dominion has been talking. We've had 5 or 6 meetings with 5 or 6 people in the last 3 weeks, and I think we've been moving closer and closer to a resolution of this. And I think if this moves forward, we'll continue to have conversations to further refine this. But part of the reason we need a new structure is because this is a new problem. This is a problem that in the United States, everybody's trying to figure out how to deal with it right now. And it involves both water and waste. It's not like other problems with only air or only water or whatever. It's a very complicated problem. And it's also different on every site. And so this bill is designed to give the regulator more information so they can make the right decision. The last thing I'll say is that this recycling piece, I think is critical. This coal ash recycling, they're doing it in other states. In other states, what they say is it's a net plus. It makes jobs, it uses its ash in the state, it creates jobs in your state, and it cleans the environment. So from my point of view, to channel a certain person up north, I think this bill could be huge. It could make lots of Virginia jobs. Tons and tons and tons of jobs here in Virginia. And I would hope the committee would favorably report it.
Keep reminding you, Senator, you're not in the House anymore. We appreciate gravity, and I'm not sure your bill is as great as you make it out to be.
Well, I want to make Virginia great.
But I intend to support it because I think it's important to continue this discussion. I think you all have been working with Dominion to try to come up with something, and that is really the only reason I intend to support it, is to keep that discussion going forward. I don't know what this committee can do, but I would just offer that. Any other questions of Senator Sullivan? If not, is there a motion?
Move the report.
Yes. I'd like to make a substitute motion.
And I'd like to, just one second, we have a motion and a second to report. And there's a substitute motion. PBI.
And I'd like to say.
Discussion on that?
Yes, sir. You know, as far as I know, the Environmental Protection Agency is the most aggressive regulator of coal and coal products on the face of this planet. And as I understand it, this process is fully regulated by the EPA in conjunction with DEQ. And I've sat by and seen the effects of the EPA regulate our coal industry at a time when negative market forces were against it, practically out of existence. So I think that the regulatory scheme that is in place is lawful. I think it's adequate. And I think we've just reached a time in this world where certain people, don't like fossil fuels, and they don't like their byproducts, and they don't like what they represent. I think that's where we are, and there are reasons to complain and to pick at those sources of energy. So that's the reason for my motion for PBI.
Thanks, Tom. Any other discussion on the motion? The motion is pass bill fine, definitely. You better call the
Senator Henger by proxy.
Pass.
Senator Ruff by proxy.
Sorry, I had to think.
Senator Obenshain by proxy.
Yes.
Senator Peterson. Oh. Senator Peterson.
No.
Senator Marsden.
No.
Senator Stanley by proxy.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Black.
Aye.
Senator Evan by proxy.
No by proxy.
Senator Lewis.
No.
Senator Chafin.
Yes.
Senator Vance. Senator Suderline.
The PBI, yes.
Senator Mason.
No.
Senator McClellan. Senator Stewart.
No.
I'm going back to Senator Henger.
I don't have his proxy.
Just 6-8. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I move we reverse the roll.
No objection, the roll can be reversed. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Vogel? You've got Senate Bill 1529. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. Chairman, and I apologize, could I just briefly ask the return this to House Bill 2076, having voted on the prevailing side by which we reported that bill, I move to reconsider that vote.
Is there a second? To reconsider the vote on 2076, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senator Obenshain.
Mr. Chairman, having voted on the prevailing side by which we conformed that bill to the way my bill left the Senate, I would move that we reconsider that vote.
Is there a second? Motion properly seconded to reconsider that vote in conformance. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we report the bill as it came to us. This is a technical amendment that the House made. The stakeholders are okay with this technical amendment. And I intend to ask that my bill be conformed to Delegate Wilk's bill in the House. It will save us one more bill, putting one more bill into conference. So I move that it be reported.
Second. Motion properly seconded to report that bill as is. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. That bill reports again in its original form. Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senate Bill 1529.
Members of the committee, I have Senate Bill 1529. What this bill does is, this is an extension in many ways of a bill that passed this body in 2014 to clarify effectively that aquaculture is agriculture in Virginia. And as you all know, agriculture is the largest industry in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And specifically, clam and oyster farming has been something that has been a multi-million-dollar industry in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now, under category of no good deed goes unpunished, this is, as you can imagine, a complicated issue. And so I'm not going to make a long presentation. There are a few people who want to speak on both sides of this, so I'll be very brief. What the bill attempts to do is lay down a marker and make it perfectly clear that aquaculture is still an agricultural industry in Virginia. And it seeks to protect aquaculture in any zone that allows production agriculture. But here is the controversial part. It also preserves that use of the property for agriculture that began prior to any change in zoning. And so with that, I'm going to cede my time to, I know some folks who are here on both sides who would like to make some comments to you, Mr. Chairman, because I know time is of the essence and we are,
You have folks who'd like to speak in support.
I think there are a few who wanted to make comments to the committee in support and against as well.
Let's have those in support, and again, I remind folks that we allow 5 minutes on each side, so just be respectful of folks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Be behind you. Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Mike Osterling. I represent the Shellfish Farmers of Virginia, Growers of Virginia. It's a trade association, clan and oyster farmers. We support this bill. This bill may have originated as a single issue, but it is something that we're facing around the country, around the state, as our farms become more urbanized. We're seeing changes to the zoning in the areas where our farms are, and we support it, and I'll let other people speak to it as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, my name is Louise Paduso. I have an oyster farm. This bill directly affects us, my family. We started the oyster farm in 2010, and we went to the county, the chief of zoning, before we ever started, and we asked them permission. They told us that we were permitted for agriculture and aquaculture. We have had our farm for over 7 years now, and in that time, I have personally invited people to my house, and we have asked for comments, concerns, and no one has ever come to our door with any complaints. In 2014, we were here before you, and we asked the General Assembly to pass HB 1089, which clarified oyster farms such as ours be protected in the Code of Virginia. After that, the county attorney asked for a delayed effective date for that bill, and then in the Supreme Court argued the delayed effective date against us and said that it was a new law instead of clarification, which if you look at the history of 1089, it was clearly a clarification of the law to include aquaculture in the definition of agricultural products. I know there are people here in support, people in here in opposition. I want to say this really shouldn't be a popularity contest. It should be about the law. We were zoned for agriculture when we started our farm. We asked. We have the support of 4 of our neighbors on the cul-de-sac. All of them, I mean, most of the neighbors just directly next to us. I know that some people might say or express the attitude of not in my backyard, but as a farmer and a person who likes to eat local foods, if we tell all of the farmers in this country and in this state that we don't want it to be in their backyard, where are the farmers going to be? 80% of our seafood comes from out of this country. My backyard is actually the Chesapeake Bay. I'd like to eat seafood out of my backyard. And one of the reasons that we started this oyster business was to show my son where local foods came from, how to be a food producer, how to eat more healthy. And, you know, again, I really just want to stress that we were zoned agricultural. This bill would definitely clarify that farms started in an agricultural zone can continue to be the farm. It may have been argued in an email. I thought I saw that our farm has been successfully relocated. I have to tell you that we have relocated for the time being, but due to costs and time, it will likely put us out of business. So I ask you to please support this bill today because it directly affects me and my family. Thank you.
Ms. Paduso, can I just ask you a question? Sure. I probably know a little more about this than I should, in full disclosure, because I was asked to carry this same bill by some folks, and I want to make sure that I understand everything correctly. You've been to the Supreme Court of Virginia twice, is that right on this case?
We have.
And each time the Supreme Court's ruled against you?
We won in lower court both times, and in the Supreme Court both times, yes.
Overruled it. And then is there current litigation now?
There is not.
Was it yesterday or the day before?
There was a spot zoning case that we were a party to. I have the paperwork that says that that case has been dismissed. It was actually, nothing had been done in a year and 23 days on that case.
Was it dismissed with prejudice?
I'm sorry?
Was it dismissed with prejudice, which means you can't bring the case back?
I'd have to look at the piece of paper. I just know that it was dismissed. I do have the
Was it
sign.
non-student? And the reason I ask you this question is typically this committee doesn't get involved in matters when it's being litigated in the courts, and that's just a long-standing policy that we try to adhere to because it just gets real complicated with the separation of powers issues and equal branches of government. And I may be mistaken, but I thought I understood the case was non-suited, that this was discussed in a county bill in the House of Delegates, but perhaps I'm wrong.
No, it was. Now, I can tell you that we were a named party on the suit. We were not the main person, but we went and talked to everybody, and they said that if this case negatively affects our chances with any bill, that it's gone, you know, I mean, so that, and we wasted no time. I think as soon as it came up last week, that night, we were already trying to talk to everybody and get it dismissed.
Okay.
So it has been dismissed. It was certainly the intent to dismiss it because it didn't want to get in the way of either.
I would say personally, I studied your situation in depth, and there were some reasons I chose not to bring the bill, but I sympathize with you all. I know you've had a difficult time, and it's
been a long time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak in support?
Hi, my name is Mary Leadham, and I also live in Seaford. And I wish to thank Senator Vogel and Senator Lewis for being the co-patrons of this SB 1529, which is to clarify the intent of HB 1089 that was passed in 2014 to clarify the definition of aquaculture. SB 1529 has the support of a lot of people, including Martha Bonetta, VICVA, and the Shellfish Growers of Virginia. This bill is important for the protection of small farmers in the state of Virginia. Elise, who just spoke to you, Anthony and Elise moved to Seaford in 2005 and began their farming in 2010. At that time, they complied with all of the requirements set forth by York County. I do not live in that neighborhood. I live around the corner up the creek, but I do visit that neighborhood. And I can tell you that there are no oysters power washed in the yard. There is work done, that work is done offshore. The oysters are not processed on the site. There are no piles of oysters. They are merely stored there. Therefore, there is no smell and no flies. Several neighbors have given Elise letters. I wish to read you one of them. Dear subcommittee members, I ask that you support SB 1529. I live next door to oyster farmer Anthony Babuso. In fact, their oyster farm is along my property's waterfront. I have lived here for almost 20 years, and I can happily say that we have fully supported the Babuso's aquaculture activities since its beginning. Contrary to the false accusations of some neighbors, as well as, I am sorry to say, some county officials carrying out a personal vendetta against this oyster farm family. My family and I have never, and I mean never, experienced any adverse effects of the Babuso's family aquaculture activities. I would be happy to attest to this fact under oath if necessary to stop this apparent personal vendetta against the Babusos, which has been going on for far too long. In summary, we have never been disturbed by the Babuso's family in doing, and we strongly encourage more oyster farming in our community to help clean the waters. Please support this bill designed to defend the freedom of our community members to participate from their personal property in aquaculture activities. And this was from William L. Smith, Distinguished Professor, Hampton University, and he lives on Creek Circle in Seaford. This gentleman shares the property line with the Babusos at the end of the cul-de-sac, so they share the waterfront. I just want to, in closing, say I felt it was important to be here for Elise. Her husband is not here because he had to be out of the country, as was this gentleman. This gentleman's in Korea, and Mr. Babuso is in Switzerland, out of the country because of his full-time job. I did not want Elise here alone. I want to say others may speak using personal attacks and untruths, but we are here to speak about the law And if the intent of HB 1089 was to protect aqua farming, and we need SB 1529 to clarify and protect the citizens from the overreach and bullying of our local authorities. Thank you.
Anyone else who wants to register their support for it? If not, are there those that would like to speak in opposition? Please come up.
Mr. Chair, I'm James Barnett. I'm the county attorney for York County. The county board of supervisors opposes this bill. Let me correct one misapprehension quickly. This use never received any zoning approval. Last night, after the same allegations were made in the House subcommittee, I emailed to each of you an email with several attachments, and two of them were, first, an email, a letter from an attorney for the Babusos asking our zoning administrator to confirm that this use in this zone on residential property would require a special use permit, and then the letter back from the county zoning administrator saying yes. Even though crop and livestock farming and agriculture were both permitted uses actually in the RC zone, which this was until it was rezoned, for a use on property which was occupied by a primary dwelling, it was not a use of right. It had to qualify as a residential accessory use, which in the case of this activity required a special use permit. That was tripped to the Supreme Court of Virginia, number one. There was a dispute over what the ordinance actually said and whether or not the use permit was required. The Supreme Court agreed with us. That's what our ordinance said. The second case was with respect...
Mr. Barnett, and just in all fairness, I think it may be enough for us that we know it's been to the Supreme Court and it's
very good
in litigation.
Part of our issue with this, we understand the problems with trying to ease the friction between growing residential growth and agriculture. We were given the opportunity, and I think this committee understood what it did in 2014 when it amended, when it considered House Bill 1089, amended one of the two sections that generally prohibit a special use permit requirement for production, agriculture, in an agricultural zone, and gave us an extended effective date, which I requested actually of this committee, and this committee amended the bill, and the House acceded to it. I was asked then if the bill, House 1089, was changing law, and I said I thought that it was. The Supreme Court agreed that that, in fact, is what the bill did, and I'm going to ask you not to try to revisit 2014 and say that you said then something different than what you actually said then, but I think that's part of what this bill does. Secondly, it makes lawful a use which was always been declared unlawful, both by the county as the Supreme Court agreed twice. We understand the friction. We've done the best we can. We were given the opportunity with an extended effective date to rezone. We actually did without rezone to a purely residential zone by June of that year, 2014. And then in October, adopted some what we call performance standards for agriculture. In many ways, we made agriculture more flexible in the county, particularly as to crop farming. We adopted minimum lot sizes and setback areas for animal agriculture and aquaculture, as the statute expressly allowed. There was a lot of citizen input. The rezoning, I think, was broadly supported by people in the subdivision. A number of people said it should never have been zoned RC in the first place. And the county's done the best it can. I'm going to ask this committee not to report this bill to defeat it, because I see it as an intrusion, admittedly, into a very difficult area, but an intrusion into the best judgment that the York County Board of Supervisors has been able to make. And we love oystering and agriculture as much as anybody. In fact, there are several oystering operations operating in York County, and this owner has found another place where he is lawfully allowed to dock his work boats, store his equipment, and offload his seafood. And people have complained about, in this neighborhood, about the odors. But now he's okay. It's fine. I think we've reached a point where the General Assembly really doesn't need to interject itself into this dispute at this point. I think it's been resolved. I think as best we can.
Mr. Chairman. Quick question, Mr. Barnett. Mr. Barnett, you've probably already done this, but could you clarify for me the status of the legal action? Because that is, as the chairman said, that's an important principle for us up here that we try to adhere to, not interfering in ongoing litigation by enacting legislation. So what is going on with that?
Thank you for bringing that up. Shortly after the rezoning, and within the 30 days allowed to contest the rezoning of that, there was a case challenging the rezoning filed. The Babusos were among the plaintiffs. It was not served on the county until sometime in 2015. You know, you have a year to do that. It was active until 2 days ago. The House asked this same question. Among the attachments to last night's email was a letter from the clerk of the court verifying that, at least as of last week, the litigation was still active. The non-suit was filed 2 days ago, January 31, and it is without prejudice. Non-suits are taken, as you may know, by statute. You have an additional 6 months, even if all other statutes of limitation are run, to refile. Obviously, I don't know what their intention is, but it was a non-suit, and the non-suit order was one of the attachments that I provided to each of you, and it expressly says without prejudice.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition? Opposition. Yes, ma'am, we have a little time left for opposition.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Sheila Nolan, Chairman of the Board of Supervisors in York County, and on behalf of the board, I am strongly urging you not to support this bill. We have bent over backwards for a number of years trying to resolve this issue, listening to everybody, having open meetings, deliberating on it, coming up here to the General Assembly, being before the Supreme Court of Virginia. We are trying to protect the property rights of the people who are in York County. We're closest to them, and I think we're really trying to do a very, very good job. This has gotten to be, as someone said, very personal. It's not personal at all. It's a question of people who've lived in a neighborhood for 20 or more years before this ever came before us. So please do not vote this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to register their opposition? If you could, just quickly.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Eric Ancaro. I was born at 110 Creek Circle. I live at 112 right now. The issue at hand is at 114. I just urge you guys, I think legislation needs to solve more problems than it creates. And all this does is cure a grievance for one person in one neighborhood. So I urge you guys to please oppose this. I also want to thank Senator Vogel for recommending that there was opposition to this and giving us some time to talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'll be very brief. I'm an adjacent neighbor, and my quality of life, and I'm sure my property values have suffered tremendously over the last year since this has been in place. And contrary to what was said earlier, we do suffer from the unsightly cage, the tanks, the pumps, the work modes, the pressure washing. The prevailing ones carry a little over our property. So I have been negatively affected, and I feel like the Board of Supervisors in the county has dealt with this over the years in a very responsible nature, and I urge you to support them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Senator Vogel, would you like to wind up?
It's all been said, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Vogel, this is a tough issue, and I spent actually a couple days looking at a lot of this.
I know, and you and I have discussed it at length.
And I'm a lawyer, and I've done a fair amount of zoning, and it's not a simple issue. And actually, kind of concerns me that we try to take on an issue like this on the fly when the Supreme Court has had 2 stabs at it.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Peters.
I'm going to make a motion, and I've actually sat through this for years now. I remember hearing from all these folks 3 years ago. Listen, we have spent a lot of time on this. The Supreme Court's office spent a lot of time on this. And I just think that, we're trying to solve a problem for essentially one family in this committee, and we spent a lot of time on it. And I think there's some larger issues here that need to be addressed involving aquaculture. And ironically, I have something of an interest in it myself with my family's properties in Middlesex. But I think this is the wrong venue, particularly with the fact that there is pending litigation, even though it has been non-suited, it could be brought back. So I would move that we PBI this, and I'll use one of my markers here to second that, Senator Marsden. That we PBI this and then take this up in the off session, and I'd be happy to participate any way I can, Mr. Chair, and see if we can get a large resolution of the larger issues.
Mr. Chair. Senator Vogel, what if we, or Senator Lewis, what if we set up a special subcommittee and let's take some testimony on this and spend some time on it instead of trying to decide this today. How y'all feel about that?
I would second that as a substitute motion.
I think that's the overall motion.
That is.
How do you feel about that?
I'm okay with that,
That
Mr.
gets you
Chairman.
closer to where you
Whatever
want to
is
be?
the will of the committee.
That's the will.
I get the will of the committee.
I think that's the will, Senator Buzzel. Okay, there's a.
I feel the winds.
There's a motion to pass the bill.
And I appreciate the indulgence of the committee. I know this is a very sensitive issue. I know there are very strong feelings on both sides, and I appreciate the indulgence of the committee.
We just want you to come back this summer and present it again, that's all.
That's right. I know you want to make me work 4 times as hard. I appreciate that, Mr. Chair.
All right, motion to pass the bill by, and we will convene the subcommittee this summer to work on this issue if I can find any volunteers on it. Properly second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank everybody who came to testify. All right, with that, I think we can move to House bills now. Do we have a sign-up sheet for the House patrons? Delegate Plum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's good to be with so many former colleagues here today.
House Bill 1781.
House Bill 1781.
All right, tell us about it.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is an agency cleanup bill. It does 2 things. In the stricken language, it takes out a report that has been in the system for some time related to the farmers market system. It's a report that, considering the success of the farmers market system, the agency decides it's no longer useful. It's not used for any decision making. In the second part of the bill, the section that's repealed, again takes out a report where the Department of Agriculture has been summarizing reports from several agencies related to conversion of farm.
I think I love your report. I think we love your bill, so let's reports we have to read. There's a motion and a second to report the bill. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, Delegate Orrock. Is he still here? No, Delegate Orrock is not here. Delegate Austin? No. Delegate Cole is gone. Delegate O'Quinn, Delegate Watson. You're the next one on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 1680.
1680. All right, tell us about it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The basic premise of this, there are 2 advisory committees now in code. There are 4 in regulations. This just takes the ones in regulation, puts it in the code. That's really all it does.
I have a silly question, Delegate Watson. Why do we need to do that?
Well, if we want to, if we want to direct them in the future, it's probably easier to do it by code than tell the commissioner to do it. He likes to be code.
You know, and I don't mean to take all the time, we went through this last night in course at about 8 o'clock on all these bills that wanted to codify these things that are in place otherwise, and I still have not found a good reason to put these sorts of things in the code, but I'm only one member of the committee. Any questions of Delegate Watson?
I guess I would only say, if we put them in the code, are we more likely to repeal them? Because it seems like every 20 years we go through and repeal a whole bunch of these commissions. Maybe it's easier.
Well, no, these are actually, one of these committees actually does not meet. The Habitat Committee, and it probably needs to meet. And they meet at the pleasure of the commissioner right now. So I think there's a reason to put them in code, and it might be something that we need to address at this level of when they meet or who gets appointed to them. But that might be a discussion for a later time, but I think it needs to be coded for us to be able to have that discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Oh, Senator McClellan.
Thank you. Is the issue that if they stay in regulations and we want to repeal it or make any changes, you've got to go through a regulatory process that could take 18 months, whereas if the General Assembly wanted to pass a bill to make a change, we could do that pretty quickly during session? That's one reason we might want to put in a code instead.
Well, right now, the commissioner appoints and calls meetings and controls that whole process. And it's, might be better off that we might have some say in who gets on some of these committees.
I'd like to hear from John Bowles if I could on this. Since this has an impact on what John does.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee here, John Bowles, Commissioner of Marine Resources. I have no position on the bill. I'm happy to answer questions. A little background on this is that these are committees that have been long established. Some of them dating back to the late 1980s, and they are formed and are in place now, packed with constituent stakeholders, members of our various industries. They meet to discuss the various issues that come up with finfish, shellfish, crab management. They give advice after robust discussions to the commission.
John, let me ask you a question. Has it been working okay so far?
Yeah, I'd say the commission, the advisory boards have worked very well here. They've rendered lots of advice, given lots of input here to the board to make their decisions. I don't know of any problems with the way it's operating now. I've not heard of any.
Okay. Did I hear Senator Wells, you have a question?
Just saying, Mr. Chairman, that, effectiveness and efficiency is all in the eye of the beholder. And there may be some divergence of views on that, and I think Senator Watson is trying to do some things structurally and institutionally that are probably long-term going to serve us well. So I think he's on the right track.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Black.
you know, I played some significant role in abolishing a whole slew of committees and subcommittees and all kinds of things that we were deregulating, basically, and it was very successful. We got rid of all kinds of things in the Committee on General Laws. And you know what I think you risk doing here is taking something that seems to work in the locality and eventually putting it in a list where we go through with a meat cleaver and we just hack it and say, okay, we got to get rid of all this stuff. And then whatever is of value, I think you put significantly at risk by codifying it this way.
Thanks, Senator Black. May I jump the gun? Did you have anybody want to support this?
Well, there are some members of industry that, if need be, they can come up and.
If there are those who'd like to speak in support, we'd like to hear.
Chairman, committee members, Mike Osterling with Shellfish Growers of Virginia. We do support this bill because we believe it gives some structure to the committees right now. It actually has term limits. It has prescribed attendance or membership. Where right now there is no given rhyme or reason of who gets on, how they get on. It's all at the whim of the commissioner. So we do support the bill.
Hey, the General Assembly doesn't have a role in that? I thought they did.
Right now, I do not believe the General Assembly does. I believe it's all at the will of the commissioner.
You put the focus on the commission, and then they collectively decide who go on these committees. I thought you do it all.
Mr. Chairman?
Hold on one second. You respond.
I can clarify that, Mr. Chairman. Governor appoints the board members who make the final decisions on these, on the actions, the regulatory actions. The advisory committees are in place to discuss the issues of the day, to give their advice on what to do, what not to do, what's the best way forward. There's structure to these meet periodically and as required, and it's mostly driven by the staff with the issues that are at hand. If we have, say, a Black Sea bass issue coming, that goes before the Finfish Management Advisory Board for discussion. I am, and my predecessors have been, in constant search to find new people who want to serve on these advisory committees. This is the time, this is energy, this is effort, and we're looking for expertise involved and to represent a wide geographical area because our constituency is widely dispersed, and to represent the various gear users as well. The system has been working well, near as I can tell. I haven't heard any complaints about what's been going on.
Anyone else who'd like to speak in support?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Kim Husky, and I'm here representing the Seafood, Virginia Seafood Council. We support this bill. These committees have worked. As a matter of fact, I would say we would like to see this bill go one step further. As these committees work now, there is a member of the commission that sits on each committee. But when these committees report back to the commission on the findings of the committee, it is usually a BMRC staff person that does the reporting back. So we not only support Delegate Bloxham's bill, but we'd like to even see us taken a step further and have the chairman of the committee report back to BMRC. So
Do you all get to attend these meetings and be a part of it?
you all,
Yeah,
members of the
you,
Seafood
you,
Council?
your members and others.
Yes, sir.
You get to participate in the process.
No, sir.
You don't get to
I'm not a
attend.
member of any of the committees. I do attend committee meetings when they are pertinent to an issue that
Well,
is.
that's my point. They're open public meetings.
Yes, sir.
Do they take public comment at these meetings?
There is not a public comment, but I could step up and speak, yes.
You get to participate in these meetings.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. Okay. Anybody who'd like to speak in opposition? If not, the bill's before the
I'd just like to point out, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Senator Sewell.
We're still not, when I look at this, they're all still appointed by the commissioner. Every one of these, as I scan it. And, I remember last year there was a bill, I can't even remember what the bill was, but Senator Peterson pointed out, pretty much all it did was add to the page to the code, support Senator Serval's father would have to buy another code book for everyone in the firm.
And you know what?
I'm the one writing that check, but that's not firm
You
issue.
know what, that's the problem you have here, Delegate Boston.
Yes, sir.
I have to buy my own code of Virginia. And then we go and then put these things in codified, doggone it, I have to spend $200 on a new code. I appreciate you bringing that point up.
In 4 years it expires according to this anyway, so you can buy another code book.
All right, is there a motion on the bill?
Second.
Motion properly seconded to report the bill. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
I didn't change my vote. We better call the roll.
Senator Hanger,
Pass.
Senator Ruff, by proxy,
No.
Senator Evanshine, by proxy,
No.
Senator Peterson, Senator Marsden, by proxy,
Aye.
Senator Stanley, by proxy,
No.
Senator Black, Senator Evan, by proxy,
Aye.
Senator Lewis,
Aye.
Senator Chafin, by proxy,
No.
Senator Dance, by proxy,
Pass.
Senator Sutherland,
No.
Senator Mason,
Aye.
Senator McClellan, Senator Stewart,
Senator Hayes on that too.
What was the count? 6 to report, 8 to not. If there's no objection, we can just flip that vote. Well, no, we'll just leave it. Sorry about that.
Thank you, sir.
Hope we see you again on a different week. All right, did I skip over Delegate Ware? I was gonna take yours up while you weren't here, we just haven't done it.
Thank you. Thank you for the,
Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 1509,
yes, sir.
House Bill 1509, I apologize.
Close enough. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1509 ensures that mineral mine operators are providing a sufficient surety to properly reclaim sites in the event the operator goes out of business or fails to reclaim the site. It revises requirements, thereby reducing the risk that the Commonwealth would have to pay to reclaim these sites where the bond has been forfeited. The bill would also allow the Commonwealth to have a lien on the land owned by an operator and reclaimed by DMME in the event of bond forfeiture. That's the essence of it. It doesn't affect coal mining in any way. And this, I would note that this bond surety has not been changed since the 1970s, so probably time to update.
It's a bill to protect taxpayers.
It's a,
A bill to protect taxpayers.
couldn't have said it better myself, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions of Delegate Ware on this bill? Anybody who's in opposition to this? If not, is there a motion? Motion properly seconded to report the bill. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's always a pleasure to be before you.
Nice to see you. Let's see, Delegate Quinn was next on the list. Unless Bobby wants to. Delegate Quinn, House Bill 2200.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is a agency bill from Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy that strengthens Virginia's coal mining reclamation bonding system to ensure successful restoration of coal mines once they're closed. It's actually an alternative bonding mechanism that's funded in part by a reclamation tax on coal that is mined. And this bill removes the sunset that was previously in the statute, so that fund can continue to grow and cover the 151 active permits that are still there. So obviously we want that to continue to grow so that it can cover the liabilities that are there.
So another bill to protect the taxpayer.
There you go.
So we're out. Any opposition to this? Any member have a question of Delegate Quinn?
Can you just repeat the number again?
Oh, I'm sorry, 2200. Is there a motion on the bill? Motion properly seconded to report the bill. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's see. Delegate Orr, if Delegate Orr is not here. He is not here. We took care of it. And I'll stop saying his name. Delegate Orr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 1619.
1619.
Excellent year.
All right, tell us what your bill does, please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is actually one of two bills that came out of an executive order study that deals with how to continue restoring the Chesapeake Bay, but also allow for new economic growth. The issue that spurred the executive order was the Tranland plant that was proposed or is proposed for Chesterfield County, but it's not a unique issue. It was one that needs to be dealt with. The quick story is when the Chesapeake Bay watershed general permit was established in 2006, it allocated nutrients to all the existing industrial and wastewater dischargers. What it didn't do a really good job at anticipating, though, was the need for room for additional growth. So at the same time, you've got current permit holders that are actually sitting on allocations that will never need to be used because of changes in operations or changes in technology. And so what this bill does is it sets up a once every 10-year look at unused credits or ones that are likely to be unused so you can free those up for new businesses. This is actually a labor of love for our Assistant Secretary of Natural Resources, Russ Baxter, convened a group all during the summer, and this was the consensus of that group. And so this is one of those bills where you're actually going to get the Sierra Club and the Chesapeake Bay Foundation stepping up and supporting it along with the Virginia Manufacturers Association. So that's the bill in a nutshell. There's some more specifics if you're interested, but that gives the essence of the bill.
I know these allocations have been an issue and they continue to be more of an issue, so it's probably a good thing, good way to start addressing it. If you have folks who'd like to speak in support, they're welcome to. I don't know that your bill's in trouble, but.
Mr. Chairman, Russ Baxter, Deputy Secretary of Natural Resources. Wanted to thank Delegate Bulbo for carrying this on behalf of the administration. I don't have any statement. I am just here to answer any questions should the members have any.
Thank you.
Steve Carlo Lovejoy with the Sierra Club. We do indeed support this.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Brett Massey, Virginia Manufacturers Association. We participate in the process, and you've heard me many times talk about the win-win of economics and environmental stewardship, and this bill defines it. We support the bill.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please come right on up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Peggy Sander from the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Just wanted to add our voice to this bill. It's an important bill. It's a small bill. We appreciate the opportunity to be part of the process of working on it, and we urge your consideration of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Adrienne Couture with the James River Association. Tranland, of course, is a very large deal for our watershed. We appreciate working with Gus Baxter throughout the process, as well as Delegate Lavon. So we support that.
Thank you. Anybody who wants to speak in opposition to this? Is there a motion?
Move to report.
Motion properly supported to report the bill. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you so much. Let's see, Delegate Ferris. You're not bringing any dog bills in here, are you?
Mr. Chairman, this is a job creation.
Oh, good. You like job bills? You like job bills?
In this rural. Mr. Chairman.
That's what your burn ban does.
Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen of the committee, this nice bill, 1793, allows vineyards and wineries to start fires during the spring to create heat to ward off frost when the state burn ban is in effect. And the outcome of that would be more blooms and blossoms and more fruit. And fruit makes wine. And I bet nobody here wants a glass of wine this evening, so we'll talk about it as long as
So
we
you're
can.
trying to heat these blossoms so they don't freeze?
Yes, sir.
Does anybody have any questions?
Are you sure that's scientists?
They're senators in training.
I got a question.
Senator Black.
Do we have a routine fire ban from February 15th to April 30th?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I answered the senator that we do, and that was a question that's come up a lot to me. And the reason for that is that time of the year is very windy, and there's a lot of dead leaves, a lot of debris, and the grass hadn't sprouted back out, the trees hadn't sprouted back out. And if a fire does get started with the wind and that time of the year, and it can be very dangerous. So you can burn from like 4 o'clock in the evening till midnight. You can start a fire from 4 to midnight, and after midnight you can't add anything to it, I think is correct. But what happens is that it frosts at 6 o'clock in the morning, and a constituent of mine called the county to tell them that I'm gonna start some fires and to warm my vineyard up. So if my neighbors call and say they see fire, I don't want you to deploy the fire trucks. And they said, well, thank you. And they went to leave the house, and they got a phone call and said, hey, you can't start a fire this time of year, this time of morning. And so, here I am.
Is there any, I see a lot of people who I know support the bill. Is any opposition to it? Anybody feel compelled to speak? Motion properly seconded.
Question, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to see.
Senator Zuderline.
Thank you.
I support the bill. My question is, in line 28, which is the heart of the bill, it says provisions of this subsection shall not apply to any fires which may be set to prevent damage to orchards or vineyards by frost or freezing temperatures or be set on federal lands. Is that the way we want it written? It looked like there were a lot of amendments on the house. I was just trying to figure out what about that was.
I'd answer the
I think
senator.
at least the bill I have, the operative language would be on line 38. Unless I'm correct.
Senator Stewart, that came from the state forester added that federal lands part for some reason that's beyond me, but the administration sure has a good answer.
members of the committee. Katie Hellebush with the Virginia Mine Council. To answer your question, Senator Stuland, we worked with the Department of Forestry on some language, and it was their suggestion that we move the language to that prior so that the exemption is already in place for federal land, as Elliott Ferris referred to, and then we would just add the exemption for orchards and for vineyards for the reason that Elliott Ferris has already discussed.
And I trust you, I just want to hear someone say that. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, there's a motion properly seconded to report the bill. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you.
Now I see why they aren't one of these senators.
Delegate Minshew.
Thank you, Chairman. How are you, members of the committee? Good to see all of you again.
See you too. I'm sorry, House Bill 1740.
Thank you, Senators. House Bill 740 is a bill that I brought on behalf of the Clark County Board of Supervisors, and it harks back to a little bit of interesting Virginia history. Back in the days before local governing bodies had powers to create special taxing districts, tax increment.
Delegate Minshew, I understand there's a substitute. Would you like to have that distributed?
Oh, yes, I would like that.
We have that distributed. Senator Black moves, Senator Marsden seconds, or Senator Mason seconds. Without substitute, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Substitute is before us. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you getting that bit of housekeeping done. What this bill does, it basically looks at a section of the code that's not used that much anymore, that is creation of sanitary districts. This may be the only place in the code where circuit court judges can create taxing districts. It's kind of an anachronism, Mr. Chairman.
In all honesty, I never understood why they did it.
It's been there since the 1940s, long before many jurisdictions had zoning and even before special taxing districts. And back in the days when the local circuit court judge kind of engaged in some local public policy making. Now we have elected officials accountable to voters who do that, and it works a little bit better. What this bill does is basically still allows for sanitary districts to be created, but it moves that power to create over from the local circuit court judge to the elected governing body of the county, city, or town. And that's basically what it does. It's a statute that in my 25 years of land use practice, I've never seen used except outside of Clark County, where there's an old sanitary district created. I might add, Mr. Chairman, that there are some sanitary districts created by court order. I don't believe that we by legislation can amend something created by court order. You're going to have to go back to the judge on that. That's what my bill does.
Well, I got to tell you, I read the original bill and I thought it was brilliant.
Mr. Chairman.
Because I couldn't understand why, and I like substitute too, I couldn't understand why they were doing that way anyway, you know, and why it wouldn't be the board and all the things that you put in, so it's a good bill.
Mr. Chairman, I was just wondering, are there any circuit judges that object to getting out of the sewage?
I think the circuit court judges, Mr. Chairman, Senator Black, I think judges who want to construe the law and apply the law and not really get into local public policy making and raises taxes would probably appreciate this bill.
Any questions of Delegate Minshew?
Mr. Chairman, just very quickly, does combining sanitary districts create a different entity, or is it just an enlarged sanitary district? Does it create any problems in the law to do this?
The ordinance, the statute allows for you to have these combined ones. Currently, they do this by court order. For example, Clark and Warren County have a shared one. But that power to have these shared sanitary districts is still in the books, except if you're creating a new one, it goes through the governing bodies rather than to the judge.
Any other questions?
Move to report.
I have a question.
Senator Sewell.
I like the idea, whenever I hear about the all-powerful circuit court judges and ones who preferred era, and I love anything we can do to get away from that. Your bill attracted opposition every step of the way, but no one ever voted no twice on it, even though they had the opportunity. What was any of the concerns anyone ever expressed?
I can answer that. Because this bill is not seen too much, Senator, in subcommittee, one person put up a no vote because they wanted to make sure this did not infringe upon property rights. On the second go round, there was a vote put out by my good friend Matt Ferris, who you saw a few minutes ago.
And that was before I had a chance to sit down and talk to my colleague about what this bill does. Because you don't see a bill where a circuit court judge has the power to create a taxing district, you have to kind of explain why you're doing that public policy change. But everyone I've spoken to who put up a no vote has later changed their mind on it. Maybe it's because I'm not that good of a law education person, Mr. Chairman.
That answer your question?
Thank you. This has been a fun bill.
And before we enter that motion, I don't know that I asked if anybody was in opposition, but if there is, then please come up and speak.
Yes, Chairman Stewart. Dan Wicks, I'm the county attorney for Warren County. Not necessarily in opposition, we just wanted to clarify a point. Warren County probably has more sanitary districts than the other county, we have 11. And all those were created by court order. Our concern is that this would change the process, or basically, if any of the citizens would abolish a sanitary district, that they could do it by this new method. We wanted to make sure that they would still be doing it by the old method under the previous, or correct code section.
So you're opposing it, or?
Well, basically, we'd like to have language in there that says for sanitary districts that were already created by the circuit court judge, that they will follow the previous procedures as far as abolishing, expanding, merging. And that was our concern. I know.
Did you propose that in the House?
No, we just discussed it at delegate issue, and he had said, talked to the county attorney for Clark County, he didn't think that was an issue, that the court order could be overcome by legislative. But I don't know.
So are you
worry.
concerned that the change in the statute abolishes you? I'm not sure I follow you.
So basically, our worry is that so basically you have 50 citizens or 50% of a sanitary district with less than 100 people. That now they would have the new procedure to abolish it, they could come straight to the Board of Supervisors to abolish the sanitary district. Or previously, it had to be a joint petition.
I don't think that's what the bill says. Delegate Menchie, is that what your bill says?
No, Mr. Chairman, it does not. My understanding, and belief as a lawyer, that if you have a sanitary district created by court order, I don't think we can legislate changes to that sanitary district. We're going to have to go back to circuit court judge on that.
I think this is perspective.
I don't believe that's.
We just didn't know if that language, was necessary to say that in his perspective. It might not be necessary. That was just our word.
Unless we say it's retrospective, it's always prospective. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there's a motion properly seconded to report the bill.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senators.
Nice to see you. I am advised that Delegate Cox wants his bill to go by for the day, which is House Bill 2311. And I think that and Delegate Hodges as well. 2009 is unable to be here, so he'd like for his to go by for the day. So without objection, those will go by. And thank you all. We got through the senators and we started on the delegates. All right.
Yeah, well, they're ancient, you know, it's just sort of a message. So what do you think?